Jim, you can hear us?
Oh, now we can hear.
now.
Is that you, Mark Evans?
There was a problem with the YouTube live stream. So we restarted it. And
Oh, good.
I said we do have Mark Evans from Greene EMS here to give the annual report. So we'll start there for tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay.
Okay, all right. First of all, thank you everybody for having me here tonight. I know we're here to talk about Catskill proposal, but Pat was gracious enough to give me a few minutes to review 2020. Despite the pandemic, we had a very successful year. We did some great things, and I think it's always good for the amount of money you pay us to give you a review of what we did during 2020. Ron Rouse is here with me. He's our treasurer consultant, and Steve Ricardo, our chief, will be along shortly. He's actually finishing a vaccination pod in Carroll, so he'll be down. Next slide. We're in our 21st year of service. We have no affiliation with any ambulance, and we are probably one of the best examples of a public-private partnership between the county, the towns, and Greene County EMS. And right now, we're in our second year of a 3-year contract with you folks, and we signed 1-year contracts with towns. This is our current board of directors for this year. I'm just going to kind of go through these. If you have any questions, stop me. If not, I just have some more meaty slides I want to talk about. Next. This is our operational staff, and you'll see Dr. Stanger, Greenville native and resident. He was going to join us tonight, but I'm not sure if he got off shift yet. He may show up later. Right now, we got 14 full-time and 20. Yeah. This is where the trucks are located. As you'll see, Medic 8 is the new truck that went into service last April up at Prattsville. This is our current model. The ambulances provide the VLS. Greene County EMS provides the ALS or the paramedic level service. These are some of the things that our medics can do. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but it is a good representation of what they can do. And the cardiac monitor that we use is on the right. It's called the LifePak 15. The cost right now is about $30,000. One of the things people don't realize is what our medics can actually do. Our medic can come in right now and go to any one of you and start an IV and stop your ability to breathe, just like that. No problem with ketamine. And they would do that in an instance of where you need oxygen and you need your airway secured by a method that needs a tube needs to be put down for whatever reason, just heart failure, head injury, whatever that is. But I don't know if people really understand just how sophisticated what our medics can do. Practically bring the emergency room right to your door. Next. This is a really interesting one, and this is because of you folks. The 911 center, the last upgrade that was done, very expensive upgrade that was done, allowed the CAD system to be upgraded and for mobile data terminals to happen. So what this is on the left-hand side is a map, and that's a picture from one of the tablets in our trucks. And it's a picture of the county, and on there, what will happen is all the medic trucks will appear, along with all the ambulances and all of the fire trucks as they would go out to a call. And the reason that's good, that's important, is if a truck is available, it will appear up there in green. If it's on a call not available, it appears red. That is then so that all the medics and all the ambulances all know where everybody is, and the dispatchers can look and say, aha, our ambulance is coming back across the bridge. There was a cardiac arrest at the pizza place there. And they could send them to that call and wait for Catskill to come. But it's a utilization of resources that was never available until this was upgraded. The screen on the right is the other screen that they can flip to, and that shows every medic truck that's in service. It shows who the medic is, it shows whether they're available or they're on a call, and what their status is. They're on the scene, they're en route to the hospital, they're at the hospital, etc. This is because you folks invested in this, and I have to tell you, this is an amazing system. For us, it's just getting up and running. I know the sheriff's cars have had it for probably a year. We've been testing it with the chief's truck, and now it's being rolled out to all of our trucks, and I think the ambulances are coming along next. Oh, expect that, the bottom there. So you can't really see that, but 3,000, thank you. 3,023 dispatches last year and 1,634. So you can see our call volume over the last several years. Next. This is just a quick example of the types of calls that we experience. And as you would expect, shortness of breath, chest pain, general weakness are the top. And at the bottom left, you'll see the narcotic administration. That's the number of times that medics have administered narcotics. That's by no means the only medicines they carry, but that's the most prominent narcotics that they carry. And we're highly regulated, and there's multiple locks on the medication bags and things like that. We have, not too often, but in the past, a couple times, we have had people try to break into the trucks because they know that there's medications like this in the truck. But they're very secure. We have not lost anything ever. One thing to remember, if any of you have scanners and you listen to calls, an ambulance might get dispatched to a broken ankle, like at Hunter Mountain, or Wyndham, which happened I don't know how many times this year. And it's not a terrible life-threatening situation, but they may have a very displaced fracture, and they're in a lot of pain. So once the ambulance crew gets there, they will frequently call for our medic, and the medic will go and get on board. And really, there's nothing medically they need to do to save them, but they're there to administer pain management. So they'll start an IV and they'll give them some morphine and make them very comfortable on the way to the hospital. Very comfortable. If you've had morphine, you're quite comfortable. Next. This is really important. This is one of the more important slides I want to get to. So last year, prior to the 5th truck, our average response time was 10 minutes and 15 seconds. That's dropped by 9% to 9 minutes and 17 seconds. I have to tell you, for a rural county, we compare ourselves to other counties across the state. We have the ability to do that. That is astounding that we have a under 10-minute response time across the county to get a paramedic to somebody's door. Astounding. And then obviously we added the truck on the mountaintop, and we expected that response time to come down. We did not know how much it would come down, but it came down by about 4 minutes, which is really fabulous. So it's shown its effectiveness. It really has. And that truck in Prattsville, I think I talked to the town supervisor probably about 4 months after that truck was there. And he came to me and said that truck has saved 3 lives. It saved a gentleman who would not have made it to the hospital, and that gentleman came back and told the town supervisor. And then there was a woman who drowned, who was successfully resuscitated by the paramedic. And then there was another one. And I'm sure there's been more since that as well. But those are the ones that I was made aware of by the town supervisor. So the money spent and that additional truck has certainly had an impact on the response time. Next. This is our budget history over the many years, and you'll see the amount that we have charged to the towns has stayed stable for many years. Our amounts have gone up, but incrementally, where you see the asterisk. Back in 2016, it went up by 200,000. That was because Catskill had pulled out. The county wanted to maintain 4 trucks, so consequently, the county made up that funding to us. So that's why we had that jump. And then down in 2020, you'll see the other asterisk, and you'll see the jump from 1,244,000 to 1,500,000. That was because of the truck in Prattsville. And last April, we opened the Prattsville station through the graciousness of Prattsville Fire District. They allowed us to put Medic 8 in the firehouse there. We have a separate room and a separate bay, and the truck is housed inside at all times. And it's really, really worked out well. They've been very gracious, and they don't charge us anything for being there. They really, really like having us there, having us in the community there. And then some of you attended the ribbon cutting open house for the Hunter Station. We moved that truck at the request of Hunter and everybody else. We moved that truck from Wyndham over to Hunter about May of last year, and then we did a. What you see there is the MCI trailer that the EMS council used to have, and the EMS council really did not have anybody to operate it anymore, and they didn't want to have the expense or oversight of it. So they donated it to us, and we had it relettered, and we have it available for the county if anything should happen of a mass casualty type incident. And then we have our chief's vehicle, which is what we run. The chief runs, or any medic can run it to any type of special type calls. And those special type calls are, our medics are also trained to do technical rescue. So they can do rappelling. Pretty much there's always at least one medic on that's trained to do that. The gear is designed so that they can put the gear on, they can get into their rappelling gear, and I know very little about this. I've never done it, but they will rappel down to wherever somebody is injured, along with the technical rescue team and any of the fire department members, and they will go down and provide care and either accompany that patient back up or secure the patient and wait for a helicopter lift out. So they're very highly trained and very highly motivated to do that type of work. I know I would. It's fun. I'll stick to the ground. So these are some of the things that we face in trying to keep our service going and improve it over time. One is just attracting people into EMS. EMS is not something people really just kind of grow up and say, oh, I want to be an EMT or a paramedic. As the volunteer ambulances in the county over time gradually went away, you lost a good training ground, because a lot of people would join and they would ride on the ambulance and they would kind of get the bug, and they would want to start writing calls, and then that would prompt them to get involved in an EMT class, which is free if you're part of a volunteer organization. Once they became an EMT, they'd come back, they'd ride, or they might get a job, and they'd get involved, and then the next thing, hopefully, we would try and convince them to go to paramedic level. It's tough to get people to go from EMT to paramedic level. My daughter's been in EMT for about 3 years, and she works at Greene, and Relation. I cannot get her to go to paramedic school. It's the cost is huge, the time commitment is huge, and it's tough to get people to go up to that next level. We try very hard to keep pace with the pay of the surrounding agencies. One of the advantages and things that people enjoy working for us is that we do all emergencies. Our medics don't do transports from nursing homes or hospitals or anything like that. So that's very attractive to some people that come in and work for us. And we have a great reputation throughout the region. We have people that drive down from Saratoga and points further than that, Cooperstown, to work for us. So we attract good people. We only hire people that are experienced. If you just become a paramedic and you've got three months under your belt, don't apply. Working out of a fly car is different. It's very, very challenging. I did it when I was a medic, and it's different, and we want people to have some experience before they come here, and we try to put them in that role. Our vehicles, we try to keep to 125,000 miles or less, and we do that pretty successfully, and we stay on top of that. And purchasing the latest medical equipment is always tough to keep up with, and also, obviously, as you folks know, the rising cost of health insurance. So here's something really interesting. Accurate data, as I'm sure you all know, for anything is important. But we have 10 years and 20,000 calls worth of data that we're sitting on. And that's because 10 years ago, we started doing the electronic reports. And that data sits there. And what can that data do? I know I could sit and have a 2-minute conversation with Warren Hart about it, and we would be on the same path. Warren keeps everything. So what could you look at with that data? Well, everybody says the population in this county is aging. Yes, it is. But how many of those aging people translate to ambulance calls? We can figure that out. Is there a difference between the number of heart attacks and chest pains in the valley versus the mountain? And if there is, okay, then you go and study, maybe in conjunction with public health. Why are there more heart attacks in the mountain? I mean, you could say snow and climate and all that, but is it also because they have less access to medical care? I don't know, but there's a lot of things that we could do to look at that data in the interest of improving the EMS system in the county. That's where we want to look at. Telemedicine, I'll talk about in a moment. Community medicine as well. Those are things that we are rolling out right now. We will continue to work to reduce response time, and we'll continue to assist with vaccinations. So one of our medics administering vaccination on the left, about 9,000 vaccinations in the pods that we've been involved with, which is a lot. Almost every single one of them, we've had Greene County medics. Community paramedicine. Community paramedicine is something we've wanted to do. We talked about for 5, 6, 7 years or longer with Ron Rouse and myself. Out west in rural areas, medics may be the best and most primary care that people can get, where you have a place where you have an ambulance transport time of an hour and a half, 2 hours, or even more. So a paramedic in a community is incredibly valuable. So, we've thought for years that there could be a better utilization of the medics in some of the rural areas, especially on the mountaintop. And, we've investigated it, looked at it, and the laws have just been totally prohibitive toward doing anything in New York. So we basically have sat by and been like, well, maybe something will change down the road. Well, lo and behold, here we are in 2021, and what changed? COVID. Everything seems to be possible, which is good for us. So all of a sudden, the New York State Department of Health said to the EMS folks, guess what? We're going to have you do community paramedicine. And I think we got the paperwork, and I got it sent to me from Steve. I signed it, we submitted it. And I think we were approved in like 48 hours, Steve? Yeah, pretty amazing for government. But amazingly, government can do anything now, right? With COVID. So we got approved, and within about 4 or 5 days, we had our first vaccination pod done by a medic at the Hoppanoose and Catskill, and those are the first people that got vaccinated by that medic. So that's another service, another arm of what we can do and are doing to help the residents right now during COVID. With this and proving that this can work, there's other stuff that we can do, and we want to look at doing that. And we developed a very good working relationship with public health. So this is the big one, telemedicine. So a year ago, probably most of you probably never had done a telemedicine call and probably never even heard of it, or maybe you heard of it, but you know what it was. Now, most of you have probably had a doctor's appointment, phone or your tablet or something like that, especially during the height of the pandemic. Now it's coming to EMS. So last fall, we went up to Del Mar and we talked with the regional medical director, and he told us about this program that had been recently approved by the region, and it was a telemedicine project. And he said, it's already approved. You just have to sign on to it. You have to convince yourself you can do this. And we walked out of there just bewildered. We were like, well, okay, this has possibility. So we took it slow. We did our due diligence. We looked at it for probably about 4 months. In the meantime, we kept the ambulances up to date, and we told them, this is what we want to do. This is why we want to do it. And we want you to be on board with us. This isn't something we just want to go out and do on our own. We absolutely could. We don't really need the permission of the ambulances, but we wanted them to be a part of it. So they're coming on board, and we are ready to roll this out on April 5th. And this is what will happen. We get dispatched by 911, just like we always have. The medic will get there. The medic will evaluate the patient just the way they always do. They'll do vital signs. They'll do cardiac evaluation, EKG, and they'll do a whole, look at the patient. They'll then talk with the patient and say, ma'am, I think you might not need to go to the hospital. Would you be agreeable to talking to a doctor right now? And if the patient says yes, then they initiate a telemedicine call. If the patient says no, take me to the hospital, then we take them to the hospital, and that's the end of it. There's no debate or dispute. If they want to go to the hospital, then we take them. If they say yes to the telemedicine, the medic will then get on the tablet or a phone, or even worst case, if there's no cell service, there's no nothing, they can get on the landline and they can call the doctor. The great thing is they're talking to the same doctors that they talk to, and they have a need to talk to a doctor on the way to the hospital. And then talk to the doctor and explain what's going on, give the vital signs, give the rundown, and then they will turn the tablet over to the patient and say, here, you talk to the doctor. And at that point, the doctor will then talk to the patient and they'll make a plan. And they'll say, okay, this is Mrs. Smith. I don't think you need to go to the hospital. And I'm going to call your doctor and I'm going to tell him what's going on and ask him to call in a prescription for you. Oh, that's wonderful. I don't even want to go anyways. Okay. And the call ends. That's it. The ambulance crew goes back in service. The medic will, after some paperwork, will go back in service. If in some places, and there's only a handful of places in the entire region that are doing this right now, in some places, they're taking it one step further. We're not ready to do this. We want to roll this out. We want to make sure that this works. But in some places, what they're saying is if the doctor calls in a prescription to a local pharmacy, the medic can go and pick it up and bring it back to the patient right to their house. And they got it right there. It's a possibility. We don't want to kind of go too fast with this. So we're going to roll it out. We're going to see how it goes. And then that may be a possibility down the road. Now, here's the thing about it. The agencies that are doing it right now, the few that are doing it, are reducing ambulance transports by 20%. Why is that important? You have people coming off the mountaintop, and I hate to keep referring to mountaintop, but mountaintop is a challenge because you have longer distance and you have much greater weather potential conditions. So you're coming off the mountaintop and you're going to Hudson, and it might be a 40, 45, 50-minute, hour-long transport in good weather. If you have bad weather, that could be an hour longer. And if you're going to Albany and it's bad weather, they've had transports go 2 hours. All right, that happens. So if you could not take that patient to the hospital, you've just saved all that time that medic or that ambulance crew has taken that patient to the hospital. And what's important, they are now back in service, just like that. And they're available because the next call could be the heart attack right down the street that they're there for. So the impact that this could have, this could be the biggest impacting thing in EMS in our county for a very long time. Now, one of the things is when the ambulances transport, they are the ones that bill for service. We do not. Greene County EMS does not have the ability to bill. They bill for their BLS, and if we are on the call, they can bill for the ALS as well. And can be a substantial amount of money. It can be $700 to over $1,000. They keep that money. Even though we're providing the service, they keep that money. If there's no transport, they can't bill. But this insurance company or this entity that we've signed on with, if the ambulance signs on with it, they will let the ambulance bill for that no transport. And I don't know what the fee is. I think it's like $250 or so. So they're not out all that revenue. They're still getting something for responding to that house and the event.
It's actually even greater than that. It's between $400 and $600.
I'm sorry. Damn, I didn't know that. Just 400 and 600. All right. So they're still getting revenue.
It all depends on the carrier, but it's
Sure, right. So there is some revenue recovery there, even though they're not transporting the patient. So this is amazing. I mean, for telemedicine to come to us in Greene County and be able to do this is amazing. All of our medics are trained. Technology is there. It doesn't cost anything more. And then right now our plan is to roll it out. Still on April 5th, Steve? Yep, April 5th. And we're excited. I can't wait to see what the first 30 days hold. So,
Mark, my concern would be if somebody is told they can make a choice, they don't go to the hospital, and they call you another hour later, they're going to get billed twice for that?
No, the patient, if they go there and we do a telemedicine call, there's no cost to the patient. None at all.
No, oh, none to the ambulance?
None to the patient, no. The ambulance will bill the insurance, but,
Not the
and
patient.
not the patient. And the advantage is this, if the insurance company will pay that to the ambulance, as opposed to taking the person to the emergency room and paying what could be, you know, I mean, you go to the emergency room, it's usually no less than $1,000. It might be a few thousand, depending on what you need done. So there's a real distinct advantage to the insurance company to keep that patient out of the emergency.
And who does the liability fall on? Let's say that, you know, they do a telemedicine and the doctor says, you don't need to go to the hospital, you just need this. They do that, God forbid that person passes away, or who does the liability of that fall on?
That doctor.
The doctor.
Yep. But these doctors we're in what's called the REMO region, Regional Emergency Medical Organization. So those doctors that are in the ERs, you can't just be an ER doctor and talk to the paramedics. You have to be certified. You have to be credentialed. So we're talking to those doctors. So those doctors are used to talking to medics, and they're also used to obviously seeing patients in the emergency room. So this isn't like some doctor, you know, a podiatrist who's moonlighting, you know, taking paramedic calls. You know, this is the actual doctors that they talk to every day. Yep.
And if the physician talks to the patient and, you know, the physician feels that the patient needs to go to the hospital, they will then recommend transport and transportation. So we'll have the telemedicine consult and then still do the transport.
Thanks. And I just want to stress, we have great paramedics, and we have a great helicopter system. So for a county not have a hospital, we have the very best that we could possibly have. And we've won awards for how we do this. And really the credit goes back to you folks. You know, you've supported us over the years, and you know, we feel you know, I don't really get anything out of this other than the satisfaction that every time I hear the medic go out, I know that somebody's going to be well taken care of, and they're going to have what they need to get to a hospital. And unfortunately, we don't have one in our county. So before I go into the other part, any questions on anything?
Can I just ask about personnel? You have 14 full-time. Is the turnover rate high or low?
No, it's very low. Yeah, people like working for us, and I attribute a lot of that to, you know, we have good equipment. We stay up on the protocols. So when something new is added, you know, Steve is coming to the board and saying, you know, the physician's going to go through this now. We should do that. And, you know, we find the money, and we get the medics trained, and we get them in. We keep our trucks in good shape. Stations are good. The only station right now that isn't the best, and where one truck stays outside, is in Greene. And, you know, just like Hunter, we've been looking for years to find someplace to put a truck.
Those 14 full-timers, are they exclusively full-time for Greene, or do they work elsewhere?
Most of them moonlight other places. That's the way EMS is. I think there's a few that are strictly Greene County EMS, but most will work like 3 days in a row, and then they've got 4 off, so they pick up another shift someplace else.
I remember the feeling was that the fact that a lot of moonlighting takes place, they come to a job tired, you don't see that happen.
No, not Steve, you want to answer that?
I think unfortunately, because of the nature of EMS generally, most paramedics have two jobs. The current rates of pay, that's just what they have to do. So while a vast majority of people are second jobs, I'd say about a third of our full timers are exclusively, you know, just working, and the rest have jobs that they don't have. Some in the county, some out of the county, you know,
Any other questions?
Naive to the narcotics part of it, but you guys prescribe fentanyl,
Not prescribed, they just dose it.
and what's that?
I've actually seen it on the mountaintop where you'll have somebody go over a cliff up there and they've got to put them unconscious so they don't hurt themselves on
So
the
you're
wall
using
back up.
it like morphine then?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we carry 4 narcotics, we carry morphine, fentanyl, for pain management, we carry MRSA persuasion, and we carry ketamine as well. So we can use that for a couple of different things, primarily it's used for pain management, but we also use it for sedation. Just like you've seen for TV, we can place a person in a bed, and place a breathing tube in, it's called rapid sequence intubation. We can that's fabulous for pain management. Your kids, and we can also use that for reduction for RSI. And morphine and fentanyl are primary medications for pain. And then obviously we said also for RSI, we also use seizures. It's actually really good for patients who are extremely anxious with respiratory issues. So it's got a lot of applications.
Any other questions?
I just want to clarify something you said, that we transport the patient. I think you should mention that you don't transport the patient. The ambulance responding will transport the patient. So it sounded like you're going to do it, but technically I would give credit to the ambulance for making that decision.
Yep, no, they do a great job. So next I'll give our brief proposal that we were asked to give Catskill. But before I do that, I just want to say one thing. So back in 2005, a few of you were here, like Mr. Martinez.
1905?
He said it, not me.
Oh.
That is the year that we first were funded by the county. And it was an initial $100,000. And the county felt that they wanted to support what we were doing, and we were still expanding at the time, and they wanted to be a part of it. Obviously, it's grown over the years, as you can see. One of the things that was stated back then, and I think comes up every few years as the legislators change, is that the commitment by the county initially was somewhat because the county does not share sales tax money back to the towns and villages. And as mayor, I kind of wish it did, but not enough for another time. But the understanding back then was we're not going to share sales tax money, but we are going to help fund the paramedic service because that will help reduce your costs at the town level. And that was a commitment that was made then. This was never put in writing. It was never made an official policy or anything, but it's come up every few years as legislators have changed and asked questions about, how did we get to where we are? So not proposing or suggesting anything, but I think it's good to have the history there, how we got to where we are. So we were requested by the county and the town of Catskill to look at proposing reestablishing a paramedic truck at the town of Catskill. Based on call data that we got from Catskill and evaluation by us, we feel we could, if we were going to cover that for 100% paramedic coverage by us, then we could do it with one truck, 24/7, 365 located in Catskill. That is what we did before Catskill decided to do their own. We gave budgets for 1.5, and 2 trucks.
Mark, that's just, not to interrupt you, but that's just adding a truck into the current system and utilizing the system.
Correct.
Just housing one truck in Catskill.
Right, buying a new truck and adding it into the system.
Gotcha.
And that leads into number 1. There's a couple budget variables that, we really don't have an answer to, so we have to kind of throw it out there. If the county and Catskill were to come to some type of agreement and you wanted us to do something, we would need to purchase a new vehicle in the first year to put a truck in Catskill. That truck would need to be equipped, how it's equipped, we're open to. If it's a situation where Catskill was going to reduce a medic down, we would be happy to buy that equipment and use it on that truck. And right now, we're assuming that, if you came to an agreement that we put the truck in the town of Catskill ambulance station. If that wasn't feasible, and we don't know, then obviously we'd have to have a cost to put that truck someplace in Catskill, and hopefully in a location near the population site. And these are the numbers we have for one truck, 1.5, and 2. You might ask, what's 1.5 truck? We looked at it as one truck, it's 24/7. 1.5 would be a truck 24/7, but then a second truck every day, 7 days a week, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Or you could do wherever you wanted to as far as staffing. So the majority of the calls were between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Then you put the truck on for that duration. And you can do any variable, from there. If it turned out that, that things are really busy, and we know when they're busy, we can look at the data. If it turns out that the most busy time is from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., you could staff a truck from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, as an extra truck. It's really all what the call line dictates and what people want to do for coverage. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer questions about that. If not, I'll get out of the way and let Dale have some presentation.
Mark, when you brought this in to look at the numbers, call volumes, did you take into account, we had discussed, that's why part of this workshop is, with adding only one card, like what you think you can do it for, will that raise the response times to other towns where you got a Catskill truck, but then one has the whole pull of Catskill's busier, and therefore the other towns might see that rise?
I don't think so, but I mean, Steve is on the front line every day. You want to respond to that, Steve?
Yeah, so I would just say that in all likelihood, no, because, so we already do system status management right now. We've done it ever since our inception. So basically, as a truck goes out, or as multiple trucks go out, the other trucks move the dynamic with coverage areas to reduce response time. So if the truck in Craftsville goes out, the truck in Hunter moves to the midpoint of downtown. Same way, so if the Catskill truck were to go out, either the Coxsackie truck or the Darrow truck would move, and then they would all move in time to make sure that response time stays up. And we've been pretty successful with that. Most county-wide systems do that, whether they're an ambulance system or a fly car system, and it works pretty successfully. So I wouldn't anticipate you seeing a bump in response times.
I'm sorry, just a couple of other ones. I know when you guys were looking at, Catskill wasn't quite there back in 2015 with the ALS service. You had numbers that showed Catskill was 40% of your call line. And I don't know why that would be different if you were to assume ALS service in Catskill, that wouldn't become 40% of your call service again. And if you've got 5 cars already, then you've got 40% more calls now, I want to say, coming, and how you do that with one truck. And then 2, I remember, Pat, maybe you had mentioned it, something was changing with paramedics or ALS on what is classified as a call or something like that, or the state was looking at changing something?
State protocols will change
State
pretty
protocols.
consistently as to what call would call for a paramedic.
Right.
And we don't necessarily send a paramedic to every call. That's actually a question.
Right, I mean, did that increase, like what the state guidelines were, has that increased?
Not recently. The classification system the 911 center uses, if anybody listens to the scanner, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Echo is like, cardiac arrest. Alpha is, stub tone. our medics a couple of years ago because primarily our medical director, Dr. Stanger, looked at the data and said, you know, a lot of these Bravo type calls really could be more serious. And I think I'd like to have a medic respond to those calls as well. So that represented a slight bump in the dispatches. And so now you'll hear, Durham ambulance, Greene County medic, Bravo priority caller, Bravo with a medic, we'll say it. And so, yeah, the things do change over time. One of the things we found was even though back in 2016, we lost the call line for Catskill, it's gradually risen. And we've watched that rise over time. And, and again, without going in and digging into the data, I can't tell you exactly like why, but, look at, if you listen to the scanner, I mean, call after call, 70-some-year-old, 90-some-year-old. I mean, it's kind of rare when you hear a call for somebody, under 70. So, yeah, I mean, the county is really old. And, what's COVID done to it as far as, it slowed it down for a little while. I mean, people were afraid to go to the hospital. They're afraid to step out of the house. I don't think so much now.
So I think also, as far as percentage, I can't speak to percentage wise, but I know that from the data we got from Catskill, about 990 ALS transports for year 2019. So basically, generally in EMS, about 1,000 calls is used as the cutoff roughly for one crew versus 2 crews and things like that. So the advantage of the system, the way it exists today, is that even though you have the one vehicle physically stationed at Catskill, ultimately all of the vehicles belong to every county. So if there's 4 ALS calls in the town of Catskill, you're going to get 4 paramedics. Similarly, if there's 4 ALS calls in the town of Durham. We did 2 calls in the town of Wyndham the other day while they were on a third call. So that's what's great about the system, the way it exists, is it's dynamic. We don't have to worry about town boundaries. We can go where we're needed. And that's part of that system status piece as well, is moving towards the center of areas to reduce those call response times.
I could certainly do that. 4 of those parts come to Catskill, looks like they went to Wyndham and Greene. 4 of them here.
I just wanted to ask, could you say, yeah, if you did have a 900, what was the transport between EMS county townships? If I could put inside this last 100.
Yeah, I think so last year was a little low because of COVID. Pretty much, with the exception of like really urban areas, most call volumes and transports were down in EMS because, like Mark said, people were afraid to go to the hospital. So our call volume might have actually gone up a little bit, but our transports actually went down because we get there, we're nervous. Hey, I got these symptoms, I'm worried. We do an RMA, but system-wide, the call volume, as far as transports were down. But yeah, we're somewhere in the 1,700 ALS range, and then 3,000 districts.
But even at that, you did 1,700, you did 9, we're over 50% of your transport volume. We transport like 963.
You're saying
If you double it, you got over 963, you'd have to do over 200 transports between EMS. That's over 50% of your call volume. As far as transport, on that tax.
Well, of their call volume, but not of the county call volume.
If you add the 900 to the 1,800, that's 2,700. 900
30%.
Correct me if I'm wrong, do you have 2 medics on their ship?
We have 2 paramedic units 24/7, and then during the day we have 1 BALS unit.
Wow. Okay. So that, Mark, could you repeat? I didn't get to write down what the cost would be for the 1, the 1.5, 2.
I have it.
You got it in the email too, right?
Do we have it in the email?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I took it out of there for you.
Mark, you were saying you hear a lot of calls, like you were saying from Catskill, 70, 80, 90, was that? Is that because of the nursing homes in Catskill?
No,
That they're,
no, this is just calls out in the county. You know, it's, and it's no particular town. I mean, it's just, you know, it's all over. I mean, you sit there and you know, you hear Durham ambulance, and they stand by and they tell us, you know, it's like, oh, is this gonna be a 70s or 80s or 90s? And, you know, 88-year-old female, you know, general illness, difficulty breathing. And that's why I love to look at the data. We would need help. We would need somebody. Ron could do it, you know. I keep throwing Warren could help us, like you don't have enough, Warren. But it would be really interesting to break that data down to see like where are the areas of the county where people are, you know, the most elderly calling for EMS and why, you know, and is there anything we can do to improve that? Is there anything public health can do? Is there anything the legislature can do? That's something to look at.
Just one second, just so everybody knows, I'm getting a text that they can't hear anybody from about Patty back. So speak up. When you do comment, Joe, you have a comment?
I want to know how many Greene EMS calls came to Catskill in 2019. How many fly cars came into Catskill before a call at 2019 and 2020?
I don't know off the top of my head. Steve might know.
I can tell you in 2020 it was 10,
Okay.
So,
and in 1944.
That's in addition to the 2 cars that are already there.
Correct. That means, that actually means that our 2 ALS units were out 44 times. We still needed Greene EMS in 19, and in 2018, we'll have that up on the slide, but in 2018, with our both ALS units out 63 times, we still called for immediate assistance, for potential assistance.
I think there's one thing we should
the
know.
19 calls, so you're saying it's gonna cost $545,000 for 19?
Well, we're gonna-
In the Catskill?
We're gonna get into that
I'll get into this.
when we get to the Catskill portion. We'll get there. This is
Yeah,
more,
that's everything. I think
this is more the 2020 rundown from Greene EMS. We'll mix it together here in a minute.
I just want to clarify one thing. Remember, if we get called into Catskill, we're getting called for ALS, definitely. But the Catskill ambulance or both Catskill ambulances might not be on ALS paramedic calls. They might be ALS calls because they have the paramedic on the ambulance. So they don't really have any choice. It could be a broken. Paramedic might be driving the ambulance and going to the hospital. So they might not be ALS calls. You follow me?
But they're not, that's it, 9 calls. You're not overwhelmed.
No, and I think 2020 was kind of an anomaly for everybody. But we'll get into that once we get Dale up and
we'll cover some of that.
Mark, on your telemedicine.
Yes.
With telemedicine coming on board, does that then change the dispatch protocol to send a medic to every call?
Not as of right now.
Okay.
No, so, as the way we're rolling the telemedicine program out to begin with is, if it's a call that Greene EMS is dispatched, they can initiate the telemedicine call. As BLS agencies come online with the telemedicine program, initially, if they have a call that looks like it's going to be a telemedicine call, they would request a medic to respond to the scene. And I think as the program proves itself, you'll see the BLS agencies be allowed to initiate those telemedicine calls without having a medic necessarily.
Okay, fair enough. Ron,
Yeah, I just wanted to add,
speak up.
another statistic about volume. If we add in Catskill, you said about 900 or so, that's a total of about 2,800 calls per year between our transport between Catskill and what we already do. The 6 trucks, that comes out to about 415 transports per truck per year. That's a little over 1 transport per truck per year, or per day, rather. I think that's our software program, to figure out that. The Steve probably is going to be excellent, figuring out how to deploy this stuff.
Anybody else for Mark? Right now, anyway?
Yeah, did you say before that you were not billing Catskill for mutual aid? Or
No, under, it's in our contract, we have to, that was put in our contract by you folks, 4 years ago, I think. So we bill them. Once they pay, we turn around and we send everything that we billed them back to you folks.
But you're not billing for the ALS portion of a call.
No, as a non-transporting agency, we don't have the ability to bill for a call at all. So that lies on the town ambulance, and, you know, they are billing for what we do, and they're collecting that. So, you know, in a way, the money that each town pays us, they are recouping some of that cost directly.
If they run an ambulance.
If they're on ambulance, right. Yeah, and you know, we see variations. Ron is really good at this. He's done evaluations of back when we did the task force, the EMS task force. There was a lot of looking at, you know, how each town bills, and there was some real discrepancies between the towns and the different companies that they used and how much they were getting for reimbursement. And the other thing too is you know, if you don't bump up your rates. I mean, you've got to bump your rates up, and you know, people don't want to do that, but you know, if Medicare is willing to pay more, you know, every couple of years you've got to bump the rates up to keep up with your costs and stuff. And we've got real.
just for clearness, so you're charging mutual aid, but the town is charging for your service.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That was not us. We didn't ask for, we didn't want to get involved in any of that, but that's what was put in the contract with you folks, and that's what we've lived by for the last.
But do you have that same type of billing either back and forth, either way, whether it's if you go to Columbia County or you go to Albany County or they come here
Yes.
to cover you as the ALS? I don't mean the ambulances.
We're not doing that, Steve. We did it one time.
No, if Albany County comes down and does a call, or we go to Albany County and do a call, we don't bill that.
It's not, okay.
Greenport used to bill us.
Yeah, Greenport used to bill us, but they don't anymore. I don't know if they bill Catskill, because we don't go to Greenport really very much anymore. Typically, if they need mutual aid, they'll call Catskill. Or now in the Columbia County system, they kind of do a system status like we do. So I don't know how much mutual aid there is there. But yeah, Greenport did used to charge us. We never charged for out of county mutual aid, to my knowledge.
But same thing, you wouldn't do that billing even if you did go out of county, you're still not doing that billing.
Yeah. So like when we do a call in Albany County or in Schoharie County with their ambulance service still bills at the ALS rate, and then recoups that ALS, that money from the ALS transfer.
But the question is, Greene EMS doesn't charge Schoharie County for that call.
No.
Right, that's what I was.
That's the clarity point.
Right.
Or the answer.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Marty.
Thanks for that 20-minute presentation.
Hey.
Thank you.
We had Supervisor Dale Finch from Catskill,
Okay.
who also has
Let's keep it under an hour.
some requests.
I
here.
can't talk nearly as much as Mark, and he's got all the professionals.
If you would, Dale, just come over into the middle, only because we have a camera here and a camera here, just so that the folks here on
on your screen and your YouTube and all that.
Yeah.
Actually, I just really wanted to start on the budget thing. I don't know if we put that up, Mary Jo, set up. I think probably that's a good place to start. And just like what Mark was saying, I got my hand copy here. He's got the one crew, the 1.5 crew, and the 2 crews laid out here. Again, I don't want to debate the budget. I mean, they got their financial person with them today and all that kind of stuff. But again, at the crews that he has, let's see, well, maybe you do have it on. But like you said, 1 crew, they came in at 437,000. 1.5 was 600, and Mark answered how they came up with 1.5 cars, and 762,000 roughly in having a 2-car program that would come to Catskill. In our situation, we're doing 2 EMS vehicles, not EMS, ALS, paramedic level units, and our upgrade, the way I work our budget, and it comes in about 174,341.
That's for two.
That's for two. That's, and really what, I got to compliment Pasco how they started this years ago. I mean, they didn't really have a lot of models to go after, but what they realized is that if we use existing manpower, in other words, we're going to have an EMT on staff in Pasco anyway. So the advantage was, why not just upgrade that EMT to a paramedic instead of paying 20, which I'll go to another slide, but instead of paying $25 an hour for a new employee, our upgrade employees like $6.56. But
How many full-time paramedics do?
we have 9.
Nine?
Nine full-time, 9 part-time. And again, we have the benefits on them. I'm sure a decent portion of those people work for Greene EMS as well. I mean, like they're saying, it's at $25 an hour. A lot of people can't make ends meet, or again, they work 3 shifts and they get 36 hours in, they go work somewhere else. So that's a routine thing throughout the system. I think just a little follow-up with what Mark said earlier is that, oh, we want it 7 to 7 instead of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That starts to get a little iffy with some of the scheduling, because a lot of the paramedics and EMTs work for other agencies, and that will throw them off schedule. We said our busiest time, because it isn't 6 o'clock in the morning normally, unless there's a call at the, when a shift changes over at the nursing home or something like that. So ideally, the high times might be 9 o'clock, but again, are we going to be able to get staffing at 9 o'clock in the morning as EMs? So just a point. The other thing that I got is like the fly cars market, or Greene EMS, you have a 50,000 for 1 car, you still have 50,000 for a 1.5 car, and 50,000 in there for a 2 car. So anyway, just a couple of points there. But if you want to go over that, I believe later on we can do that. Housing, our ambulance service, I got Jared here. Our guys are pretty much packed in there already. We don't really have room in our bays for additional vehicles. With COVID, we have difficulty currently dealing with that because, the bumps and the, social distancing and things like that. So we don't really have room to bump additional employees on our West Bridge Street location. So I don't know, just, again, that's why I boosted that 437 up to 500 in a couple of the examples that we're going to, get into later on. So, okay, I guess unless anybody's really I don't really want to get into the meat and potatoes of that budget thing. I mean, that's debatable. We can go back and forth. Go ahead.
I'll just ask one quick one.
It's got to be a little fair. I know you got a CPA on you and all that stuff. Go ahead. Let's go. I'm like, you can ask me. Go ahead.
Yeah, the 174,000, that's for 2 crews with both BLS and ALS?
That's 2 crews updated from an EMT to a paramedic. I'll have that in a slide coming up. It'll show
It
you.
covers the upgrade.
That is just covering the upgrade. But again, we have insurance on our EMTs already, so, we offer insurance for all our full-time people. So we're just upgrading on a $1 per hour amount of money, not a fresh employee. And frankly, that's how not Greene EMS, but Columbia County, they do a decent job with that, because that's how they really design their system, by upgrading their current system or the current paramedics that they had. They're using all their nonprofits and using existing employees. And the truth is, why wouldn't we want to grow government? Putting another car on, it's just adding expenses, and it's growing government. It's going to grow your taxpayer. It's going to take money out of your taxpayer's pocket ultimately by adding additional cars. All right, I guess Mary Jo will go to the slide if we could, please. All right, this is just what you got to have a cover thing. But again, advanced life support service, I think it's important to have a view from the town level. Government for us, everybody has perspective on what EMS does, and I want to give you what it looks like from a town level. I want to give you an idea what it looks like from a taxpayer level, and obviously patient care is the most important reason. That's why we're here, to transport people and give quality service. Next thing, I guess the only options we have you can go to the next slide, but right now we're talking about having Greene EMS, which is contracted by Greene County, provide that service, and then we're really doing a comparison today about what we're doing at Pasco EMS and providing paramedic service. I guess we're good to go to the next slide, please. All right, so you asked the question earlier. Here's a little bit of breakdown on staffing requirements. One shift, 24/7, 8,760 work hours. I believe the math is pretty good. I think that 219,000 in the budget. So roughly, give or take a little bit, you're probably paying your paramedics are averaging $25 an hour. So for one car, it's going to cost Greene EMS. This is just basic salary. This isn't talking about Social Security compensation. This is just basic real dollars in the beginning. So and if we went to 2, which is comparable to what we're offering Catskill currently, Greene EMS salary is going to cost $438,000. We're still doing it at the 114 because we're doing it on that slide on the bottom. You'll see our contract. We're paying our EMT $17.63 an hour, and currently we're paying our paramedics $24.19 an hour. So that difference does work out to be, I think it's $656. So the difference just on labor, if you wanted to compare, if down the road, if we came to the fact that we needed 2 cars in the town of Catskill, or just to make it equivalency, but for what we're doing now, $323,000. Pretty easy math. Okay, I guess we can go to the next slide there, Joe, please. So there's a cost comparison again. This is coming off the budget line items, right off of from what Greene EMS supplied. 1 crew 437, 1.5 600,000, 603 rather. 2 crews 762, almost 763. Our stays consistent at 174,000 an upgrade. So we ultimately needed 2 cars. Everybody in this room is going to have to make that decision. You really want to go back to your communities and say, we're going to tax everybody $588,000 more for a service that we're providing at 174.
That's not actually our decision. That's going to be your decision, whether your town wants to have their ALS or not.
I think it's really a decision if you want to, it's really about doing the right thing for everybody. Again, I don't think I think that's where all this EMS thing has problems because everybody has a turf war.
No, I don't think so. The legislature didn't make the decision for Catskill not to go into or stay in the Greene EMS system. That was a Catskill town board decision.
That's correct.
So why would it be a legislative decision to say, go back into Greene EMS? It's not our
Because
fault.
you're going to have the opportunity to vote on it, and you're going to have the opportunity to say, again, I'd rather keep it on a friendly note, but you're going to have the opportunity to vote that through. If you want to go back to your constituents and tell them you're going to charge them more money for a service that we already do equally as well, if not better, because we transport patients.
Let's look at the number more closely than that right now.
Let's go on to the next slide.
So excuse me, 1 minute. You're looking for a check for that amount of money to cover this?
That is
Just to make you whole?
For what number?
The 174,000
No.
would make you whole? That would make everything work for you? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, we'll go to the next slide. The difference is, right now, if you added $500,000, again, we got all the parcels broke down in the second column. It will start with Ashland on the top at 3%, and it's all the way down. That's the portion of everybody's budget in Greene County. So when you go, every town is
This is by adding in another Greene EMS.
Right. Right here, right, just 500,000. If we added 500,000 to the Greene EMS budget today, that column there is what's going to cost every town additional. And that's
That's by putting in another car.
That's putting in another car at 500,000.
That's with assuming 500,000 goes to the county budget.
Correct. That's correct. It's 500. Again, we can fine tune the math, but I think it's a good.
Well, yeah, it would have to be fine tuned. All the towns, other than Halcott, which is on its own kind of system, but and Catskill, the rest of the towns do write a check to Greene EMS.
For the 20%, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's above and
your
beyond
first
that.
page says it's a contract by Greene County government. That's not 100% true. It's a contract with Greene County and each town that Greene EMS has. Each town writes a check to Greene
Absolutely,
EMS.
absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Like if you went over in the end to say, after you lived in Athens, you're paying $129,000. And roughly they pay Greene EMS another 23,000 as an example.
Right.
I'm
Right, but that's what I'm saying, that 500,000, that's just making an assumption that the whole thing is going to the county budget, not split.
Well,
as partial town costs.
Correct. But in the slides that Mark presented earlier, if you looked at them, the town shares haven't moved.
Right.
Right, those stay consistent over probably, I don't know how many years. So those numbers didn't move on what the town's cutting the check for.
Right.
Those numbers didn't.
And that was the decision by the Greene County Legislature to not hold other towns accountable for Catskill's decision to pull out and increase the cost.
That's not true. The county tax will pays into the EMS system.
Yes, through their county tax.
Over $200,000 a year.
Yes.
And has some services, but not 100% services.
Right.
From Greene EMS.
We
So
pay.
the town taxpayers are paying the county back 200 some odd thousand for services.
Through their county
Services
tax.
that may not be at 100% level.
Joe, if you want to look up here, on the current budget, which Mark presented, it's $1.5 million. That's roughly what the budget is, minus the 20 or whatever that number is that the towns pay separately. Over on this column, so if you went to Catskill right now, we're paying $255,000 and, $217, and we get zero service.
Not zero.
Zero. Well, as we get additional service, we pay $520 a call.
Right, and then
That's what
bill for that service.
Right, that's what I asked about.
Exactly.
Right, that's what I've been asking about for years.
And you keep referring to 588,000, that's the rate.
Where do I didn't, what are you saying
It
now?
was a savings, it was showing savings.
I'm saying right now, in Catskill, to get to 1.5 million, we pay 250.
Yeah, I know, earlier we were talking about.
Well, we should, that's a slide back, but, what do you want to know?
Clarification, said we saved it.
Correct. That one crew at 437,000, you came in at 700, per the budget you put up earlier, you came in at 176, almost say 763,000
For two crews.
for two crews, Greene EMS.
And you're saying for two crews, we spend
I'm saying right today, currently, real dollars, I'm doing that for $174,341. And that saving is $588,644. And we can go back and work the numbers, but even if it came to be 560, it's a big number, correct?
Well, that's only the difference.
That's the ALS portion.
That's the
That's only
difference.
ALS. That's
Only
correct.
ALS.
But that also just
That's
includes.
not the real cost.
What's that? That's the comparison is why we're here today. We're comparing ALS services. We're not comparing anything else, right? I mean,
And
that's the
that's
issue.
the hard part, is you're trying to compare a medic flight car to an ambulance. This is we operate a tiered system, the rest of the town.
Mhm.
That's why it's very hard to compare apples to apples. You operate an ambulance service with medics on it.
Correct.
They take fractured ankles to the hospital, that medic service, no matter what.
Correct.
Our medic responds with an ambulance, fractured ankle, maybe they go and get medicine, but if they don't, they go back in service. They're available for the next call.
Right.
So your comparison is very, very tough because you can't really compare this to apples to apples.
That's not true.
I can-
That's not true because that ambulance who responded to your call is taking a patient to the hospital and they're out of service. You're only in service for advanced life support. Ambulances transport all the patients. So you're in service 24 hours a day. Some ambulance services are not because they're out transporting people.
Well,
And what Dale is saying is, we're seeing a patient, an ALS patient, and for transporting that patient, it's $174,000 a year.
we're right. That's what we're doing we're doing that.
So I don't know what your point you're trying to make.
And the other point is, and I don't want to get the rough, but we want to go. But Columbia County, no fly cars, right? Any fly cars, they trans patients, they have They have the GPS units in there. They reallocate ambulance all over the place as needed. They get the depleted area, they move in, they do all them kind of things. And guess what? They do what Catskill does. And I think it's working over there. If you want to talk the money, what it costs, that, look, I mean, well, I don't,
Well,
again,
we were actually there a few years back.
good, but again, I came here with the expectations of people wanting to listen, hopefully wanting to do the right thing, and not get into turf wars and, worry about whose cable bill we're paying and, all the, look at the big picture. It's not about, anything but, saving the taxpayer money and doing the right thing for the residents of not only Catskill, but Greene County. It's that simple.
So Columbia County system, they have 5 agencies in the county, that's it.
Okay.
They're all ALS, that's absolutely true.
Mhm.
But when they do mutual aid, the county of Columbia pays each town
That's correct.
ambulance service.
That's
or,
correct.
you know,
They pay them about $140 when they move one ambulance to a different area. And if they get on the ALS call and if they transport or not, they give them the $650.
So it's
Not only if they
advantageous,
transport, but
it's advantageous to Columbia County because the agencies that participate, in addition to whatever they're billing the patient, get additional revenue from the county.
correct. So what does it really do? It helps make your municipal ambulance or your nonprofits more profitable, puts money in the ambulance pocket, and keeps the taxpayer dollars in their pocket, because the ambulance service becomes a little bit busy.
But I guess I'm confused as to the comparison, because
Well, the
that would mean
comparison,
that-
I
that would mean
don't
that
want
all
you,
10 ambulance services in Greene County.
I don't want to get confused. The confusion is, Mark asked me a question, is that it's a different service, because we have an ambulance and we happen to bring a BLS patient over to the hospital because they got a sprained ankle. And so I realize that you guys just do ALS services. I understand that. What I'm saying is that doesn't make our system bad. That's what so that's my thing is I'm saying Catskill still got a good system. It kind of mimics what goes on across the river. So it doesn't make us bad, I guess. So it's not to get confused about.
But on the $174,000, you're looking at just the marginal increase, like the $6.50 per hour above what you pay BLS? Because if it comes out, if
No, it's not that. It's the difference in what that's including of like 14% in the New York State retirement. I mean, that's the only real item that's more money than what you guys would provide. So it's not this, that's with all the benefits included in it, New York State retirement. You guys had, I think you had roughly a 4% in overtime, 4.3% in vacation time. So I worked all those numbers in.
what do you pay your paramedics now?
24.19.
Right, at the current contract, $24.19.
And you have 2 on, well, that's $50 an hour, right?
That's what your guys is $50. I'm telling you, mine's not. If you do it, if mine's 6, it's probably $14 an hour. Because we're $6.56, so it's what, $13. In the upgrade, because we got the guys on staff anyway.
Well, that's what I'm saying though, if you're gonna compare apples to apples, which you're not.
I don't want to, I'm not here to compare apples for apples.
Obviously so, but what you gotta do is figure out how much you're paying a paramedic, as opposed to just a marginal increase.
Yeah, I don't understand. I didn't understand the 656. Didn't want to say anything. So you're saying it's simple math. I'm like, no, shut up, I'm an idiot then. I didn't understand. What are you actually paying? What is their base pay? Not just the increase. It would be $24.19 times 24 hours a day times 2, wouldn't it?
Times 2,
Right.
paramedic.
Okay, I was feeling so stupid. I didn't.
No, I mean, the Columbia County system and ours are as well. If we're gonna have people on staff, because we do our ambulance go out, we're gonna have that staff anyway, so why not upgrade them instead of putting another person?
But-
Why expand?
But my question is like with Greene EMS, and I'm friendly here.
Oh, yeah.
Greene EMS
Yep.
is giving us what it costs them to have their staff on, their base pay that they pay them.
Mhm.
So in order for us to make a decision, I think I would need to know what are you paying your staff, not just the increase, like what is their.
Well,
I don't think it's our
we're
decision.
paying $24.
I don't think it's our decision to tell the town board of Catskill what they need to do with their ambulances. I
Not
think
at
it's
all.
our decision just to see, is it gonna cost us more money as Greene County taxpayers by adding in another car? Or is it gonna, are we paying more in Catskill, for example?
Right. I think
In terms of your payments.
Right.
That's the difference.
the difference here is,
And the fact of the matter is we're paying for Greene EMS service through our county taxes already.
correct.
And so if you take out the town taxes, we're paying them already in the county for ambulance service that we're not receiving.
Right.
That's,
Well, and we can-
that's why I think we had this workshop.
And I think the difference is.
Right, Pat? I mean, does that make sense?
Catskill would still, no matter what, we're not saying we're gonna take a shift away though. Because in other words, we got that fixed cost, it's right in there. So if there's, you wanna compare that paramedic, which is a good question. However, Greene EMS comes to Catskill, we're still gonna have our fixed cost in Catskill is still there. We're still gonna be paying somebody $17.63 to respond. Because when Mark's over there or Greene EMS is over there, they still need the ambulance to bring somebody to the hospital. It's not like that staff is going away.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you can't point to us and say, we pay $25 an hour and you only pay $6.50 for a permit.
I'm not here to argue that point.
But you're also,
But
you're also.
Well, I am,
No,
we got a fixed cost, we're upgrading our cost.
You can't say your system costs $174,000.
I'm not saying that.
Yes, you
I'm saying, no, I'm not, I'm saying the system upgrade from an EMT to advanced life support is 170. I'm not saying our system costs 173.
You're saying that's the cap for
The upgrade.
the ALS service.
Right, but then when you compare our cost, you're not looking at the marginal increase, you're looking at the whole package. When you look at you're just looking at the marginal, that's comparing.
What I really want to, really it's very simple. I'm looking at what's it gonna cost the taxpayer. We can talk about this, you can muddy the waters up, what do you want, like a good defense attorney, but the bottom line is, at the end of the day, how much is it gonna cost your taxpayer?
That's what I'm asking.
But you're not including either the $255,000 the town of Catskill county taxpayers pay into the EMS system as well. So you're 174, but you're still paying 255 on your county side.
We want that back.
Well, it was not through a decision though of this board to not utilize that
If you
255,000.
guys wanna go back, if you wanna go back to all your constituents and tell them, you know what, I wanna charge you more money because we don't wanna entertain it, that's fine. That's up to you guys. It's really about doing the right thing.
So what is it that you were coming in for? I mean, I'm a little bit confused now.
Don't get confused. What I'm coming in for, I'm coming in for here, see, right over here on the first line, Catskill, $255,000. Out of 1 point, right now, I'm coming in here because Catskill's we're subsidizing the rest of the county, everybody in the room, we're subsidizing your service. And our Catskill residents are getting nothing. That's why I'm here. That's not that hard to figure out.
The implication that Catskill should not pay anything into the system?
We're not
Do
using.
you pay for things you don't use?
Well, I pay my taxes to my county, and I may not have services in the county that I pay for. What about the sheriff's office? What about every town that has?
What about it? Do they pay by call volume?
But yeah, what I'm saying is, so the towns, just to use an example, the towns, there's a number of towns in the county that have a local police department.
Correct.
They still pay into the sheriff's office. They may not utilize the sheriff's office really as much because they have their own county, or their own town police force.
That's true, but that's not how this system is set up. And
It's exactly the same actually, because it's the same rate, it's the same county tax rate for every town.
so you mean to tell me that if I call the sheriff's department and on the bill, and they start back charging, again, that's a conversation, I don't think that's really what, I think that's just trying to convert where we are.
The town of Catskill uses the sheriff's department. The town of Catskill residents use all the other county services except for ALS.
And frankly.
And when we use it, we pay for that.
Right, and I think
When we-
thankfully, more, in the same respect, Mike, the thing is, they should be thankful that the village does have a police department, because otherwise there'd be more resources the sheriff's department would have to spend in the village.
I think that was the purpose of this workshop.
Right.
From what I understand at our last committee meeting. That's why we wanted to have this workshop, because these questions came up.
Right. I mean, in the past, I agree with you, Matt, because I mean, when you read the Daily Mail, the article was saying that nobody told us why we left. The really reason was because it was more efficient and financially better for the town of Catskill not to be in the system.
Apparently it's not. If it was, you'd still be doing it, not asking for this. Something's wrong in your system. I'm not sure what it is, and I'm not getting a good explanation from what you're presenting. I apologize. I'm not being nasty either. I'm just saying. I'm not understanding what you're looking for or what you would like to do.
What we're looking for is we're looking for not having to pay into a system that we're not getting any service from, and we're also looking is that we can do it more efficiently in Catskill and at a better price than we can from the county providing that service.
Again, that's where the conversation came from.
And that's really ultimately where we're at. I mean, everybody can dig their heels in and do all that, but really, maybe it's better to roll up your sleeves and look at it a little bit better.
Right, Dale, I've been on Zoom too long, so we want to catch me up here. So Catskill has 2 ambulances.
3.
They've got a paramedic and an EMT on each one.
We have 3. We have 3 in service during the day. 2 advanced life support units, 1 BLS unit. So we have, again, 24/7, 2 paramedics all the time, ready to go, and during the day we have 1 BLS unit.
So you got 9 full-time paramedics, and they switch over based on the number of hours they work.
Correct.
They work, so when an ambulance is called out, the paramedic goes with the ambulance, whether or not.
The first one out of the barn during the day is a BLS unit, if that's what's required. If an ALS is required, we send that.
Oh, so there's 2 different trucks?
We got 3.
Oh, 3.
We got 3. Maybe we can move on a little bit. Go ahead.
Okay, so.
3 trucks, 2 different levels of service.
Okay, so depending on the call, then the paramedics go out or they don't go out.
Correct.
And if they do go out, the town would charge the patient for the BLS or the ALS or both.
Depending on the level of service, we charge accordingly. That's correct.
So if both trucks are out, then you call in or you ask the county to backfill. That's right. And then they charge you $500 or $800
$520.
for every time they come in the backfill.
That's correct.
Okay. So now, Mark comes tonight to present the cost of a truck. Are you looking for Greene EMS to help you in any way, financial or in terms of service? Or do you think?
I feel adequately we self-sufficient.
So you don't need Greene.
I don't need Greene EMS.
Your gripe tonight is that you're paying for a portion of it, even though you don't use them the most part.
That's cool. That's a good explanation.
So what?
or viewpoint of it. That's kind
What would your solution be to that problem?
problem is, or the solution to the problem is rebate Catskill $255,000 and give back to the taxpayers in Catskill. Or cut us a check for a service that we don't use.
So the rest of the 13 towns should supplement
But
the town of Catskill.
Catskill is helping other
Yeah,
towns.
well, let's move to another slide.
Yeah, but it's Catskill is
So really, if we went to 1.5 cars, just because we want to stay where we are, or if we don't get cooperation or at least some open-mindedness to at least look at the situation. If you're in Wyndham and if we're gonna boom up, say we need 1.5 cars, if that's an actuality, the people in Wyndham are gonna pay $79,000 more than they are today. If you're in, Catskill would be 102, the next big hitter is Hunter. If we had to add $603,000 more in it, you're gonna have to go back up to Hunter and tell them, it's the $75,000 more dollars that are gonna come in their county tax bill. Your residents in those towns, Greenville is going to be $31,000 more. You want to go to the next slide? Again, because we have 2, and just to compare that. So if we ended up needing 2 fly cars, Wyndham's going to pay another $100,000. Catskill would be $129, Hunter $94, and so on. It's all on the spreadsheet. By percentage, I guess I didn't realize how it wasn't involved, so we can take the big 1% out. We can shift that around a little bit. Those are the numbers that really end up costing the taxpayers in the
So
county.
is the $762,000, that's the county share?
for this? That's the county
No,
additional.
that's the cost. That's
Of two
Greene
cars.
EMS's cost to operate 2 additional
So
cars.
that's not the county share.
That will become the county's.
That will become.
Well,
No, it won't, no,
that
no,
would be-
because what's gonna happen, if we had to add 2 cars, it's gonna be $100,000 more to Wyndham, plus the 197,000 that they're already paying, so they're close to
I'm
300,000,
asking.
plus whatever that 20%. So if we get to that level, Wyndham's gonna be paying over 300 some odd $1,000. And we know what 300,000, I mean, I know you,
With that,
You're gonna- they had to add
$750,000 with that insurance,
to
is that the
EMS.
county
It's a-
share?
The shared service of this helps.
Guys, one at a time, but $300,000 is nowhere near 13% of the total bill, so the math here is just,
Well,
it doesn't work.
To answer your question, 760,000 is our cost.
So that's your cost.
That's our cost.
So then we would have to decide how we're going to, if that's gonna be divvied up to
Correct.
all of the towns.
Just like, no,
Or is that,
Your budget is gonna go up.
That's right.
we're gonna vote to add 2 fly cars, yea or nay.
Our
And if it
county
was
budget.
2 fly cars, then our budget goes from 1.5 million to 2.262 million.
But nobody is asking to add 2 fly cars, from
Well,
what
I'm
I
just saying.
understand.
yeah, but if
No,
Catskill
we're-
pulls
I'm
out.
asking you to do the right thing and not add 2 fly cars and you can get out of Dodge a hell of a lot cheaper. That's the question.
Dale, what this is about is, I'm a taxpayer for Greene County and the town of Catskill. For the last 5 years, we've been paying just over 200,000. When we put the 5th car on, we went to 255. As the county, as the taxpayer share of Catskill to their budget. I want to see what Greene EMS can do it for and what Catskill's doing it for. And and who's ever doing it for a lesser amount is the way it should go. As a taxpayer. It's that simple.
So the town of Catskill is gonna provide service to the whole county cheaper?
No, it's, I'm already paying town taxes.
Breathe.
And then I'm already paying county taxes, and I'm not using the service. And the town of Catskill comes in at 174,000 for their 2 crews, and Greene EMS, which they stated thinks they can do it for 1 crew, 1 car, which is 435,000 to 500,000, depending on these 2 numbers. 255 is less than 500,000.
Oh, absolutely. You guys chose to do it this way. I don't know. I still don't get what you're looking for, or you just want money back here. We'll write you a check. Is that what it is?
Oh, no.
No, well, I mean, I think the flip side of that, do you want to go with the 2 additional fly cars with Greene EMS and actually cost the county additional money? Considerably additional?
No, but I don't think anybody asked for that. My understanding was that there was either a staff problem or a financial problem in the town of Catskill, and they were looking to see what a different service would be.
But I think.
Well, I think we.
Catskill folds up, we're gonna have a problem. That's my concern.
Listen, Catskill's not gonna fold up, number one. That's kind of, but again, we needed to ask Greene EMS and the county legislators to come up with a price. How can you do a comparison? You had to have hard numbers.
Well, once again, I'm a taxpayer for the town and the county. I'm not gonna pay for a failed service. I'm not gonna keep raising taxes on one end, and I'm not gonna keep paying taxes to pay for a service I'm not using. And at the county level right now, Catskill residents are paying for a service they're not using.
And
The other 13 towns are.
I don't disagree with you, Mike. They give us the service, and the county makes it available, and I don't disagree with
Yeah,
you.
but then we
Wait
pay
one
for it.
second.
We pay for it.
But when
You're
that
not adding
decision,
that in.
when that decision was made, there's no difference between that point in time and now with the county portion. That was known by the town of Catskill Town Board that made the decision, and Dale, I understand that was not you. But
Well,
that-
guess
that
what?
was
If the
known
numbers
at
look
that
like
point.
that, I would make that decision.
That's not correct.
That is correct.
No, it's not.
We didn't make that call.
I was in the legislature when this all came about. One, great service and we should have it.
They both have a great service.
Wait a minute, just listen. When the county came up with that budget, when it was voted by the county legislature, to fund Green EMS, that money had to be raised by county taxes. And there was no way at that time that tax bill could be excluded from the calculation of that tax because the county administrator told me you can't do it. So the town of Catskill absorbed that cost, knowing at that time that there was a potential that they wouldn't get the service. Now, at the time that was done, Catskill was not an advanced life support ambulance service. It was, at that time, it was still BLS.
Yep.
Catskill chose to go to advanced life support service. One reason and one reason only, to provide a quality of care for the residents of the town of Catskill. That was the reason it went to advanced life support. It didn't say Greene EMS wasn't providing good service. It said, we're going to provide a better service, the same service. And when they did that, they said, why now are we paying for the $200 and some thousand? And the reason we're paying for that is because the county administrator, the county of Greene cannot eliminate the town of Catskill in the way they compute their tax, their county tax. And I've always asked, is there a way to do that? And that's what Dale is asking you.
Well, I think there's a way to do it.
Well, then that's what they're asking for, and that's what Catskill's been asking for the last 5 years.
At the end of the day, it doesn't get rid of the cost, so, you know.
No, it doesn't.
My
It
theory is.
I agree with you.
You can
It shifts the cost to the other 13, well, it doesn't have to be the whole 240,000, but it will shift costs to, the other 13 towns. That is absolutely correct.
That's
No,
what I
it
asked
would-
for at our committee meeting.
It's-
That exact same thing that he's just saying, that's what I asked for at the committee meeting.
Well, what
That's
he
what I was
just said
trying
is
to
not
explain
correct.
in budget work.
What he just said is not correct.
What-
It shifts the cost actually to 14 towns.
Right.
It goes to all the taxpayers.
If Catskill is zero,
That's got to
and
be
they have to
wrong.
raise $1.5 million for the.
But you're not gonna be zero because you're still part of the county tax structure. And like, the
Well,
point would be.
No,
you
I'm
would say-
saying we're gonna be zero, but I'm saying, and I'm just saying to you, if the town of Catskill is paying 250,000, whatever that number may be, if the town of Catskill goes down 100,000, well, the town of Catskill is gonna save 150,000, but depending on Green GMS budget, the other 150,000 that has to be made up now will be shifted.
So what you would really, in essence, be looking for is more of a tax credit on a tax bill
Of 255.
of the whole thing.
Why not?
I'm trying to figure out what other town we provide a tax credit for that does ambulance service in the county.
Pat, 1 minute. Town of Wyndham is $297,000. They provide their own EMS service. They're going to want that money back too if we do this.
So does Catskill supply their own EMS service, but really, the difference is this is an ALS service.
And I will
So is
tell-
Wyndham.
will tell you
So is
why,
Wyndham. That's an
Well,
ALS
Wyndham
unit.
ought to look at it.
and I will tell you why the town of Wyndham is paying into the Green EMS system, because Pat Meehan, who was town supervisor when I was town supervisor, said, we're willing to pay for the Green EMS system, and we do not want to be out of it. And that's the reason why Wyndham has never fought
Correct.
that amount.
And I think the other thing, Joe, is, I mean, every municipality is different. I mean, you're further up on the mountaintop, we got issues up there. We're closer to CMH. We have a coal volume in Catskill. I mean, you know, it's a lot of this is based on coal volume, as they would allude to earlier. Greene EMS doesn't bill. Catskill, when we transport is when the money comes in. If you don't transport anybody, there's no money. So again, we got a coal volume, our overall coal volume, over like 33 to 3,600 calls a year. But again, 700 or 800 of those calls we go out on, and nobody gets it back at the ambulance, and no money comes in, which is just the nature of the beast that happens in every town. along those lines, when Mark, did the presentation about the, the telemedicine and things like that, we're on the cusp of doing that as well, and that's gonna help in the situations where EMS ambulance comes to any patient's home. If the patient decides they refuse treatment, they don't want to get transported, or it's our opportunity to say, hey, can we get you on that laptop with the physician, and maybe, get a couple $100 for that call, maybe it's gonna be $400. I like your number, Steve, out there. Maybe it was just the Medicare numbers I got from a couple of insurance carriers was a little lower than that, but again, if it goes to the general population, maybe we can get $400 for that telemedicine or teledoc call. And again, I think the motive there is that eventually the insurance companies like to, because they keep patients possibly out of the, out of the ER, and saves them money, but it doesn't. It will help response times because they'll get ambulance back in service, rather much more quickly than they are today. But it gets back to this debate on this 255. I mean, I heard that you couldn't rebate it, you couldn't give a tax credit, but again, in Columbia County as an example, they actually run a lot of the EMS budgets for the towns, or they're not towns because they're more nonprofits, but the towns obviously have a contract. So to help the smaller municipalities stay under their tax cap, Columbia says, hey, what do you need for EMS this year? And they run it through the county budget, and then the county actually writes a check for Greenport Rescue Squad, Malaysia Rescue Squad, and things of that. So that way it helps the smaller communities stay under the tax cap with their ambulance service. Like, in your town, it was a big hit for them this year. So the county has that ability because they got a much larger budget, so they can absorb that and stay under the tax cap. So that's a help that the county could do for the smaller towns as well to help them stay under the tax cap. But it also demonstrates at the same time is that you can make those adjustments in the budget. It's not an impossible thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think I'm a little bit more steady on what you're looking for than I was. I was completely confused as to what you're looking for until
Pat, I just want to be clear that when I asked Sean and talked to you about this workshop is, I want the most efficient way to happen, one way or the other, where the service is provided, great service from Greene EMS, or great service from town of Catskill ALS. It makes no difference to me. It's what's going to cost more. It's that simple. Now the 255, we're still going, if that comes out and comes back to Catskill, Catskill's still going to pay 17% to make up the 255.
Right. And that number, and that number is about
43,000.
Right, but still, I mean,
right. So my point is, Catskill's still going to pay anyway, as much as the other towns are going to pay.
We're still paying.
We'll be paying 17% for our own rebate.
We'll still be paying the mutual aid, which I think was down this year, but 19 it was 30,000 or something.
Mark, you have a question?
I want to say, I think it's important to remember, Greene EMS provides numbers. We don't have a chip in the game, this argument or fight here. But one of the reasons Greene EMS came about in the first place was there was no paramedic service. No town was designed to provide paramedic service. And it really started by 3 townships who got together and put flag farm, and then it grew from there. And the reason is because all of these ambulance services run by the town could not all afford, and they don't have the will to go and put their own paramedics on their ambulances. And it would break their budgets, and and my point is if you give a rebate or you do whatever, that's the county's business. But I just want to caution, this is one thing I'll say related to this. If you turn around and start writing checks back to Catskill or anybody, okay, then another town's going to come in and say, well, hey, wait a second, I'd like you to supplement my ambulance service. And maybe that's a path that the county wants to follow. I think it would require
God almighty.
Review. But I can tell you this, if that starts to happen, Greene EMS will crumble, right? And every town will then say, the hell with it, we're just going on our own, and we're going to do our own paramedic service. And I can tell you this,
Never have enough staff.
there are not enough paramedics to go around. We struggle to hire enough paramedics to staff our ourselves, and I'm sure that's what the same way. As Dale said, we have people that work both units.
Right.
So, you know, it would be impossible for them to do that and all have their own paramedic service. And here's the thing, we're going backwards if that happens. So please, remember, preserve what we have, all right? It's the best system we can have. I understand all the arguments here. We don't have a chip in the game. We're here to provide information, but please don't venture down that path because that will kill. Okay, over time, the towns will start. I will add this: Town of Whitman is down the road considering possibly not doing paramedic work. So, you know, right now we're secondary. That could change. We could go back to being primary at some point. Thank you.
And I think that
Just real quick, I want to get out of the numbers. And if you could go to your slide, it's beneficial for the county and the town of Catskill, the fact that we have a top flight ALS, EMS.
Yeah, well, and
And it really reflects the amount of mutual aid we want to have. And it's not about dollars and cents, it's about the safety of the residents of the town. And that's what it comes down to, and that's why I've always said, in my 8 years on the town board, that I will never cut ambulance, because it is the only thing that keeps our residents safe. Right. And if we look at the amount of mutual aid and the health of Catskill ambulances that we're looking at.
What are you talking mutual aid for ambulances or for
Yeah.
Greene EMS?
Well, no, I'm talking about mutual aid that we send out to every town in the county.
All right, that's
I'll
a little different than this discussion.
Well, it's a segue into the next couple of slides. But I just to follow up what Mark said, I mean, and I think that is the fear of you know, we're not here to take, I mean, listen, when fly cars came into Catskill, and I was around a long time, it's, you know, 6-5 and Main Street, and they did a great job, but you know, and listen, I had a motorcycle accident myself. I was on the back of an ambulance going up to Albany, Med, feeling every damn pump on the concrete going up there. So, and I had the morphine, so I know what it's like, you know, in the back of an ambulance, and I appreciate what Greene EMS does for it, or any ambulance service. I mean, listen, when somebody calls the ambulance, there's no such thing as but a second call. When you call the ambulance, you're the first call because you're the patient. You don't care if Catskill has 2 ambulances out. You know, you're expecting a service, and it's not again. I understand what Mark's saying about, you know, what's going to happen if you do it this way. But the truth is, we have been doing it this way. We've been doing it this way for 5 or 6 years. We have a proven track record in Catskill, and we have a population to, in fact, sustain that service. I mean, it's not going to work. And the more rural you get out into communities, you know, the model that we have is not going to work because of the call line. So it's not, again, it's not, I don't want you guys to think it's a turf war, but it's not. We're really just, in the end of the day, what's the right thing? And that, you know, that's it. That's really the right
Can I
thing.
just add in one thing? Because, you know, again, both Greene EMS paramedics, town of Catskill paramedics do an outstanding job for our residents. Right. The question I asked at our committee meeting that you had, Mike and Dale had a meeting with Sean about was regarding the mutual aid fee. The discussion came up at our committee meeting, and I brought up forward is that this $255,000 that's town of Catskill taxpayers are paid should be shifted to all the other towns that are using the service. Catskill is not using the service, mutual aid fee. That's what I think that's how this workshop developed as far as, you know, my knowledge, and I recall when we had this discussion at our committee. Not about the level of service, because both entities are providing excellent service. And as I was discussing with Patty, if the town of Catskill doesn't have a paramedic system, then we're going to have a problem, you know, as a county. But right now they do. So my question that I've been asking, and I agree with Mr. Bigfeld, is that this extra $255,000 should not be coming from the town of Catskill on our county budget. It should be paid for by the towns that are using this service. Period. I don't think that there's a turf war. I don't think there's any comparison between service to service. I think they're the same paramedics you're saying. So there's, some of them are the same exact people.
Right, and I think, and just a little follow-up on the paramedic, you know, which the town of Catskill's, I don't think is inclined to do. We're gonna say we're not gonna have a paramedic service and we're gonna lay more taxpayer dollars on the whole county. And at the same respect, Mark, I mean, we have 9 paramedics, and, I mean, I don't know the number, but there's a lot of faces that work in both buildings. So if we say, you know, we're gonna get defiant, just, you know, or whatever, we're gonna say, you know, we're gonna go ahead, you know, nobody wants to cooperate with the town of Catskill. So, yeah, we're gonna sign up, and Greene County's gonna supply all the paramedic service for the town of Catskill. What are we gonna do with the 9 guys that work for Catskill, Mark? Give them the pink slip, tell them they're gonna go down to the EMTs, you're gonna put maybe a couple of guys on to cover a couple of shifts. What's it gonna, it's gonna have an impact on your workforce. Because then where they're gonna pick up the other 36, 40 hours or the overtime when, you know, the men and women that, and again, just be honest, they answer the call for it. Everybody, Greene EMS are good employees, we have good employees. When everybody was home, they didn't want to go out of their house. Our people were out there picking people up with COVID.
But Dale,
They contracted, so I'm just saying, a good
He's
piece.
not even going there. Nobody's asking to put extra medics on from Greene EMS. So
What I'm saying is, the people that Mark has working for him, so they would have to travel further to Albany for another market to pick up the hours if they didn't have their positions to Catskill. And insurance as well, because
So we would hire some of them.
well, yeah, some of them, but those are the 5 that don't get hired.
So from what I'm hearing though, the reality is you're not thinking of doing away with your ambulance system.
Well,
You want to keep your system exactly the way it is, but you just want us to take that 255, 217 away
And spread it
and
amongst
spread it
everybody.
out. So you really aren't looking for 1, 1.5, or 2 cars.
Right.
You're not looking to change your system and lay your people off and having them go to Albany.
That's not
You're
ideal.
looking to keep everything the way it is, except for that line item right there.
That would be,
Right?
that's correct,
Okay.
Patty, and I appreciate that, because that's, in a recap, that's what it is.
All right.
And just, we'll move on 1 second, just to clarify on the mutual aid charge. That is in lieu of the check that every town writes to Greene EMS on top of the county budget that Catskill does not write to Greene EMS. That's what that mutual aid charge was for.
I got it. But it's kind of hard, as me as a town supervisor and a town resident, it's kind of hard to accept that we pay 255,000 and then we need a call.
Well, no, but you get the bill. If you get that charge, you get the bill for that service that Greene EMS provided as well.
Absolutely.
So it's really a net zero.
Let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
So just on a daily average call basis, again, this isn't transports, you like ESO, just Catskill, no other communities. This isn't going to Coxsackie, this isn't going to Athens or any place else. This is just Catskill, New York. We get the alarm or the call comes in for 1,216 just ALS calls. Not again, not the BLS calls, that's in the 3,300. So that's what we do 3.3 times a day. Is that ALS in Catskill alone?
And Dale, do you know if a lot of that is from nursing homes?
I would say most of that. I mean, I don't know. I think more of our BLS would be, because we got like the Elliott as an example, they don't lift anybody. So as soon as somebody falls out of bed at the Elliott, what do they call? They call us, we lift them up, put them back in bed, and it's a service because there's no transportation. Right? Is that pretty much how it goes? Okay. Anyway, you talk about the building. That's how it goes.
Okay.
That's strange,
What's that?
that they don't pick anybody up.
At the Elliott, they don't, because they don't have RNs or nursing staff at the
That's a complete waste of the EMS resources.
Yeah, big time.
Right, that's correct.
Story for another day.
It's story for another day. But again, and we do have all the nursing homes on our Catskill residents. And then when we do go to the nursing homes, the pay rate or the share that we get, it's all Medicaid, Medicare, and their pay scale is low versus private insurers. So we have a high volume of calls that don't really pay as well. mean, if a skier that falls and breaks their ankle, they get a little bit more money for that call. Anyway, next slide. So these are the calls that we actually transported. So once the calls came in, we still transported 993 people, just so you know. And that averages 2.72 calls per day. Okay, so, and again, when we're out of service, that means the cars are going to shift, as Scott and Mark mentioned. And as these cars shift, that means some other community's not going to have that ambulance directly in Greenville. It's not going to be direct, but again, it's so the response times will go up on that principle just because the cars are out of service.
And you have 2 full-time ALS crews on every day
Absolutely,
for 2.72 calls per day.
that's correct.
Dale, I just have a quick question. You get paid for doing other towns as well, for assisting other towns?
We do have, we have a contract with the town of Athens.
Well, I heard you mention Greenville as well, so I was just curious.
Well, I just use that as an example. No, we have no other contracts. What I'm saying is when an ALS or any ambulance goes out of service, well, at ALS, because we're talking ALS tonight, is that Greene EMS, if we went with them, they would be shifting and response time would change. It would have to change. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so average call time, so when we do go on those 900 calls and we actually transport, our ambulance is out of service for 91 minutes. So on those 3 calls, there's one, if we only have one paramedic in Catskill to Greene EMS, and we go with the low number, 5 hours and 3 minutes, one of that EMS car is going to shift.
Is that why you have 2?
Well, we have 2, yeah, exactly, because we felt that that's what we needed to support our community.
Because if one is taken out transporting, then you're left.
Right, and into that consideration, our previous slide was 1,216. So that number is going to go higher because we still had to go out with an EMS or an ALS unit to evaluate that person. So that's the only ones that go in the back of the ambulance. We take them to Greene, we take them over to CMH, we bring them to Albany Medical Center, St. Peter's, or a place of that nature. But again, when the call, we still have a couple hundred more in that number that we're still going to go out and evaluate where that ALS unit would be out of service, and so would any other ALS unit. So that's just an example. So again, and I think the 91 minutes is fairly accurate. I mean, I did reference in Columbia County, their average time per their webinar that they had, they're out for about 75 minutes per ALS call. They have CMH Hospital there, so we are about 15 minutes away from that hospital. So those numbers are around the money.
It's pretty easy throughway access too, so.
Well, I'm just saying for us to go to Greene, for us to go to a ride from Hudson here is about 15 minutes, or 20, right? So in that vicinity. Anyway, that's hard data. That's not it.
Got one question.
Well, I just got, do you ever have incidences like you have one call, but use both ambulances, like a car crash or something like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, but that's a great point, because I would just make that number go, out higher, because it's one call. I mean, I don't know, again, I could put 2 ambulances on that. Well, that's a great point.
Yeah, but then you have no coverage.
Correct. That's a good point. And honestly, we do contract with the town of Athens. And I'll be honest with you, and that's been a little contention around as well. We don't let our last ambulance normally leave our facility on a mutual aid call for a lot of reasons, because it costs us $520 to backfill it if we go out to help somebody. And the other thing I realized, since I've been the supervisor, they said, well, I'm not going to, your town's contracted with me, so for a service, and we're going to do our very best to make sure that we have an ambulance for your town. So I mean, that is important to us.
You don't take that out of the pool.
Does Athens use ALS from Catskill or only BLS?
Only BLS there. But again, it's still, again, if ALS comes to 2nd Street in Athens, they still need an ambulance to transport that patient to the hospital. But that's how they're going to get the ultimate service. Again, if somebody's having a major event, I'm sure our ambulance administrator is gonna let that person, that ambulance leave the town. But, if it's a sprained ankle and it's up at North Lake, it's not gonna leave Catskill. All right, let's go to the next slide. Please. Oh, that's just a fun thing, I guess, but if anybody really cares what day of the week, that's the Sundays. I knew Matt was not gonna take long. But that's the day, that's what the coal mine per day looks like. And as Mark was saying, the data's out there. I don't think we go back quite as far, but you can work this stuff, you can find out, in data, there's knowledge.
Warren can help you with that.
Yeah, so, but those are the busiest days. So it looks like on a Sunday, which I was surprised, and Thursday are, our biggest days. Sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning is a big time for us, just because the shifts at the nursing homes change, and that all of a sudden, they want to help somebody that maybe didn't need help in the morning. So 6 o'clock in the morning is some of our busier times as well. All right, mutual aid calls. You look at this, so we made an investment in the town of Catskill in our rescue squad. So I think it's important to look at that screen if you're in other towns, especially Cooksaki, Caro. So if we wanted to cut corners and do the wrong thing and take ambulance up out of service and cut costs, and it was all about the money. Caro, in 2018, we did 84 calls, and they came to Catskill 38. So we supplied, and again, I don't know if the data, but still, it doesn't matter if it's an ALS call or BLS call, because without us showing up, nobody went to the hospital. So even if Greene EMS went out to Caro, and they went to that call, but 84 times they needed assistance. So and whose ambulance provided that ride to the hospital? And the truth is, they're not all rides to the hospital. I got some of that data, but maybe maybe 2/3 of those get transported. So the times that they don't transport, we supply a service, and we don't charge them $5.20. We go out there, nobody gets in the ambulance, 0. We get no money for being a good neighbor. It's just about doing the right thing. Seriously, that's really my whole point today. Cooksaki in 2018, same thing. We went out to Cooksaki 67 times. They came to Catskill 23, positive 44 calls, Catskill to Cooksaki. Hunter, 2018, they went 15 times to 2. Durham, not so bad. Actually, 2018,
We're all about doing the right thing.
You did the right thing, Patty. You sent somebody out to help us, and then the Columbia out. So anyway, in Greene EMS, we actually called Greene EMS in 2018 63 times. So that kind of demonstrates, even with our 2 units, again, and the market could have been out on a BLS call with an ALS crew, but 63 times we needed assistance with 2 full crews. That's why I'm very leery of saying I'm going to buy into 1 paramedic from Greene EMS to cover Catskill.
But you're talking about, again, 2 different things. So an ambulance versus a paramedic.
Right.
2.72 calls a day is a unit utilization time very low. It was like 5 hours out of 24. That's really reasonable. You've kind of proven that 1 paramedic can cover that. And then those towns that are sending ambulances to Catskill are also sending their only ambulance to Catskill.
Correct.
For coverage.
Correct.
So we're talking about ambulances responding to late because they're out versus paramedic coverage.
Right, but when somebody's on the ground, they need a ride. They need transportation. All right, let's go to the next slide. Same thing, not as bad that particular year. Caro, we only did 4 more for Caro. Cooksaki again, though, 2019. We seen more times. We went 32 more times to Cooksaki. Hunter, we went 11 times more there, and we called Greene EMS 44 times. So again, but it does demonstrate that our ambulances are out there and we're staffed, and we are helping other communities. Next one, please. Just, which I think we beat this up a little bit, an ambulance transports patients to the hospital. Greene EMS doesn't transport. I think that's just a visual, but I think we kind of, at this point, all know that. Next one. So what's the benefits? We're using existing resources because we're updating our EMTs, we're upgrading to paramedic level and not paying the full $25 an hour. Economically feasible, it's operationally efficient. And I tell you this, and this is a big thing too, it doesn't grow government. It's not adding additional cost. By adding new cars, you're gonna add those numbers that we talked about earlier, all the way up to 700,000 if we needed to, versus a low number where we started from. So it's about providing service at the right price and not growing government. And then this is from the state of New York, provides transportation. A hospital emergency room is the highest level of ALS care. It's not in the back of the ambulance. It's not anywhere else. So the real key is to get it. And that's the state of New York vote. So that's next slide. And I think we probably had enough. But I just, again, we're not here to reinvent the wheel, but it's a good YouTube video out there from PJ Keeler. He's the coordinator over in Columbia County. He actually did the presentation to the associations of counties, and I believe it's even on their website. It's about a year old. And again, I'm not saying we got to mimic Columbia County, but again, there's nothing wrong with learning and taking some of the better points that other municipalities do, and we can look at a hybrid of some of those things. And their system is it's based on using existing employees, and it keeps the cost factor down. And they shift, and what they did, they got a certificate of need through the state, and then what happens over in Columbia County, they start moving ambulances around through their dispatch system. And I think it does help the smaller communities, is because if you move that ambulance, Columbia County pays that ambulance service like $140, and then if the ALS call comes in, they actually reimburse that ambulance squad around $600, regardless if they transport or not. So what it does, it keeps all our paramedics and BLS units more active, and again, makes it more efficient because they're doing more calls. Or not, as PJ Keeler says, it gets people out on the street. They get more practical and clinical experience and things of that nature. Again, just a point. I'm not trying to push that on anybody. And the other one that I got is over in Albany County, just because I happen to work up in Bethlehem for a lot of years. I kind of pulled their budget up and looked at what the Albany County Sheriff's Department's doing. So they got a hybrid thing up there, Albany County Sheriffs. They have paramedics and they have, EMTs, the whole ball of wax. So what they do, it's up to the town if they want to be involved with these EMS services from the county. So Bethlehem, because they have their ambulance, so they work with a lot of volunteers still up there in the evening, but during the day, Bethlehem EMS, they actually they contracted with Albany County Sheriff's Department. And at that point, they say, okay, I want so many paramedics and so many EMTs, and they actually cut the check to the county for $1.2 million. So they get what they pay for. Same scenarios out in Westerlo. Westerlo says, hey, I need an EMT. Albany County says, sure, I'll send you an EMT. Town of Westerlo writes the check for that EMT or the paramedic service, whichever it is. But the town of Colony doesn't pay into the system. Town of Gilderland doesn't pay into the system. The city of Cohoes doesn't pay into the system. So I just want to let just to highlight, because I heard in the past that there was no way to rebate, the individual towns. And I think, again, through Albany County doing that, it demonstrates that you can give that rebate. Again, not writing a check, you give it right back to the taxpayer. We're not looking for that money, but I want to put it back in the taxpayer's pocket. And again, if small communities, if you help them out with their budgets, if they have an EMS problem, you can run their budgets through the county and help smaller communities when they have a big push, so it doesn't hurt them on the tax side. But that really is out there just for knowledge as far as how you might want to do it, or at least look at it. And I think the PJ Keeler thing is a 58-minute video. And as you know, he works in the Treasurer's Department over there too, so I think he knows how to handle the money. That's it. Any questions, though? I think we're an hour. Go ahead, Mark.
I want to comment. The Albany County system is very unique. It's not perfect. There's problems with that system. It is unique the way it operates. It's not the best system in the world. It's okay. They move their ambulances, as Dale said. They do system status management. I know, my daughter works at Greene. She'll text me and say, I'm standing by at Kobeck, or I'm standing by at Glacier. That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Over here, we move our medic trucks all the time. You know, in the first few years of Greene EMS, and people call me and say, hey, going down 9W, I saw your medic sleeping on the side of the road. What's that? No, actually, the medic was posting, you know, to be in between towns. But something we don't do, and, you know, this is just a point, this isn't related to this specifically, but something we don't do should be done, and it's really a John Farrell thing, I think, to address, or EMS coordinator. We don't have a county-wide mutual aid plan for ambulance. It doesn't exist. There should be one. It exists for fire, but there is no county mutual aid ambulance plan. It's been talked about for years. The second thing is why don't those ambulances rotate? So if Cairo, Greenville, and Durham go out, why aren't we moving another ambulance? Why doesn't the dispatcher have the authority to tone out Catskill and say, hey, Catskill, you're going to go and stand by in Cairo until, you know, these other ambulances get back in service. If you want to make a next level improvement in our EMS system, then we need a mutual aid plan that everybody signs on to, and you need that coverage. It's great that we move the medics, but if we're going to move the medics, why are we moving the ambulances? Just point out.
And I think that's a point that's well taken. But, and I think it's a very good point about moving, but that may require that the county to apply for a certificate of need so that they have the authorization to move those ambulances. And I think the other part demonstrated is that if we're going to move them, which is a great idea, but all the towns involved with that have to make a decent amount of effort and an investment so that, again, Pascal's got 3 ambulances, we're bigger, but you know, you can't always rely on the guy. You got to make a good effort to do, you know, have a decent amount of staffing to begin with. But I think Mark's, you know, spot on with something like that.
I was just going to ask, is that a county certificate of need, or is that individual certificates of need for each agency for the county?
No, that's just coverage. That could be handled through a mutual aid plan that every agency signed on to and said, you know, we will under a standby situation move our ambulance. You know, Casco's, you know, Coxsackie's not going to abandon the town of Coxsackie. They'll cover Greenville when Greenville's out,
Right.
but they might move up to the firehouse where the medic truck moves to. And that's the type of thing that can be covered under mutual aid plan. You don't need a CON.
Right. You don't have to.
By agreement.
They can still move over the line even, Mark. There's other federal, I mean, that's what again, if they can do that, I think that's something to think about. It's going to greatly, again, that would greatly improve response times for everybody in the world.
Absolutely, and that's no argument here.
No.
That's just something that could improve the EMS system. And that was looked at in the task force years ago. And, you know, nobody ever looks at it, nobody ever goes back and refers to that. There's some great information.
And I think, like I said, I think everybody's got to look at what was discussed tonight with an open mind and really look at what's the right thing. I didn't come here to, you know, be confrontational, or I just really came here to present the data from our viewpoints and from the taxpayers' viewpoint. And again, I guess if we did mention, I think we'll have a greater, which we do, a great appreciation for the EMS service that we have. I mean, sometimes we have these conversations about dollars and cents and service, and you know, the men and women that we have working for us at Greene EMS and Town of Catskill, they're on pins and needles with this situation too. So again, we got to be, you know, we got a lot of good people working for us. They do a great job, and you know, I sincerely appreciate them to that role. So I just want to, again, I can't thank those people enough for what they do for our towns. With that, that's all of that. Thank you.
And Mark, who would put together a mutual aid plan? You know, if that's something that we thought was, so would that be Warren?
That's good. That's funny. I mean, really, it would lie with John Farrell or
Sean Hotel
as EMS coordinator to get all the together. And, you know, I mean, you don't have to start from scratch. There's ones out there for other counties. Just get them, and you know, I mean, the easiest thing is do it through EMS council. Every agency is supposed to send a representative to EMS council, so that would be the easy way to do it. But
Yeah, we do it now with fire, not only within the county, but also with neighboring towns on the borders of counties.
Sounds like a great idea.
Because technically, right now, if Greenville is out and needs an ambulance to respond, SAC is under no legal requirement to respond to Greenville. None. They don't have to. There's no legal requirement for them to respond. I've never heard of a town saying, we're not gonna respond. I mean, they might have their own fault. Catskill chooses to, keep an ambulance in reserve, that's their choosing. But, there's never been a problem. But legally, there's nothing in place to say that, we're gonna move these ambulances to cover falls for each other. And I think it's not a problem, but it's something that really should be solved.
Right.
Everybody's on the same page.
Or a countywide ambulance.
Or a countywide ambulance system, where were we? Bill, did you, anybody ever think of that?
This, and they'll pay for it.
Bill has the whole report on his desk. Although I think these days, if that were to be looked at again, I think we have a whole lot more data available, readily available, than what we had, what was it, 14, 15? And that took quite a while to get, just because of the way we were collecting or not collecting data. Probably a lot easier to look at now, but I still think that at some point, that's where this is going to wind up. Just my own opinion.
There are no more volunteer ambulance people, are there?
Not on ambulances. We do have.
BLS, no volunteer BLS?
We do have volunteer first response units. They don't transport.
Allenville's first.
Yep, Allenville, maintains Falls and Baltimore, Medway. There's about 5 or 6 of them. Right, they run through the fire companies as volunteer BLS first response. So typically on the more rural and outer areas of the town where they take, like Catskill, for instance, would come from the village with the ambulance, but have to go all the way out to Kiskatown or Palinville. Palinville would have first responders that go and they show up on the scene a little quicker than what the ambulance or maybe can get there. Not all of them do it. Some of them got into it in the last few years out of necessity when their ambulances were volunteers or hybrid models, and their fire companies stepped up and started some BLS first response units. So, great. That's. Does anybody have any other questions?
I just got one thing, Pat. If we're thinking about writing a check back to Catskill, Wyndham's going to be looking for one for their ALS service. I think every town that's not on the river is going to be looking from the sheriff's department to write a check back for the boat. I think it could be just multiplying from here. I don't know where we're going with it, but just my thoughts.
Thanks, Jim. Go on. All right, anybody else?